I think the time that I realized that my wife had really become unhinged and that I was actually a little bit scared for her own life. And this was probably about 3 years before she passed away. This is the first time seeing me. I kind of tell stories about my wife who passed away from alcohol use disorder about 4.5 years ago. And this page is really all about helping families and other people who suffer from alcohol use disorder. But there was one case where she was incarcerated for 65 days. She had actually had 4 DUIs, and she had her 3rd and 4th DUI pretty close together. So they essentially gave her a year incarceration. Unfortunately, there was overcrowding, so they let her out after 65 days. I mean, at the time she was on crutches. She was essentially a housewife. I think they realized that she probably wasn't a threat to society, so they did let her out, which was very unfortunate. I wish she had stayed longer. It might have helped save her life, but in any case, after 65 days, it was, immediately when I brought her home, I think she got an Uber and disappeared. We didn't see her for 3 days. And part of it, I'll get into a little bit more, the reason why she did this. And the reason why she became a little bit unhinged when she got out of jail, literally, is because I had only visited her 2 times, and she was really upset, like I had some kind of abandoned her. And unfortunately, the jail was an hour away, and it was I was an insurance agent, and it was open enrollment. I was working like 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. Physically didn't have time, and unfortunately, it really wasn't my priority to go to a jail and meet my wife. That separation, that time alone, is very helpful for families too. I just need to point that out. On that note, we didn't know where she was, and it took me 2 days to find her. We called around. I was getting to the point where I thought we should call the police. My son was getting a little worried as well. But this isn't the first time she had done this. And unfortunately, a friend of hers said they saw her in front of the grocery store. It was one of those kind of high-end grocery stores, and she was sitting in a little bistro table in front of it. And I went, it was a few miles from my house, and I pulled up next to her, and she was passed out on the little bistro table. There was a bottle of wine sitting in front of her. It was half empty, and there was an empty one in her bag next to her. So I went and parked the car, and I slowly walked up to the table and just sat next to her at the table and just looked at her. And I kind of hit her on the shoulder, and she looked up, and she was inebriated. She barely recognized me, and I was like, I just remember just looking at her, just going, what are we doing here? How did we get here? Why are we this far down the road with this disease? And so, eventually I went back to the car. I threw out the wine bottles, and a couple of bystanders helped me in the car with her because they could tell, what the situation was, that obviously there was some issue going on with her. And the people around there were very kind. I had 2 people, to get her up off the chair and then, get her into my car. And it was very unfortunate. And what really got even crazier is that day she sobered up. I think I got her like in the morning around 11 o'clock. And by 4 in the afternoon, she had sobered up. And again, I don't know how she got it, but she managed to get an Uber, and she disappeared again for a couple days. And this time we didn't go looking for her. And unfortunately, a police officer called me up. They found her in a park. And they had taken her to the emergency room because she was extremely inebriated. It was just crazy. It was just one thing after another. And I realized, even after 4 DUIs and spending that much time incarcerated, that it had made absolutely no difference in the way she thought about the alcohol use disorder, the alcohol, or what was going on with her life. And I'm fully aware a lot of people hearing this story that have never been in this situation, never had an alcoholic in their family or been around this, are going to go, well, it must be something that the family's doing or the husband's done to make this happen. And unfortunately, none of this has anything to do with anything but the person, but the alcoholic. It was completely independent. She had had this problem for a long time. It had manifested long since, before I even had met her. There were some things in her childhood. Again, these aren't excuses. These are realities of the disease. And all we can do is look back and learn from them. Eventually, my son and I went to the hospital and saw her, and she stayed there for 72 hours and actually put her into a psych facility for another 10 days. And that was the episode coming out of jail for 65 days. I also want to point out we have the Facebook group. It's called There's an Alcoholic in the Family. It's a very good support group. I also go live on this channel Monday through Friday right around 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And when you're ready to work with me one-on-one, click on the link above. Schedule a breakthrough call in the Calendly link. The Zoom call is about 45 minutes to an hour. We do a very deep dive into what's going on with you and your family. The call is free. Of course, the coaching program will go over, and that's not free. I want to make sure it's a good fit for you, and I need people who are committed to their sobriety. And again, thank you so much for listening.